Hello students. Today we are going to discuss about sympatholytics in hypertension. First we start with classification of antihypertensive drugs. As discussed in earlier lecture, antihypertensive drugs can be diuretic, which include thiazide, loop diuretic, and potassium sparing diuretic. They can be sympatholytic drugs like alpha and beta blockers, combined alpha and beta blockers, centrally acting adrenergic drugs, and adrenergic neuron blocking agent. They can be calcium channel blockers, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, AT1 receptor antagonists, vasodilators like arterial or venous dilators. Among them, we first start our discussion on sympatholytic drugs. Classification of sympatholytic is given here. If we start from the above or the brain, the drugs can be centrally acting drugs, ganglionic blocker drugs, adrenergic neuron blockers, then receptor blockers like alpha blockers and beta receptor blockers, and then lastly combined alpha and beta blockers. As such, all these drugs has been discussed into lecture series of autonomic nervous system. So we will be just discussing their role into hypertension here. If we see the classification of adrenergic receptor blockers, it includes alpha receptor blockers and beta receptor blockers. We are discussing receptor blocker drugs first because they are most frequently used drug among the sympatholytic drugs. Alpha receptor antagonist can be non-selective, which include phenoxybenzamine and phentolamine. Alpha 1 selective, which include prazosin, terazosin, doxazosin, and many more. Alpha 2 selective is yohimbine. And when we come to beta receptor antagonist or beta blocker drug, they can be non-selective like nadolol, penbutolol, pindolol, propranolol, timolol, sotalol. Beta 2 selective esbutolol, atenolol, bisoprolol, esmolol, metoprolol. Sorry, here it should be beta 1 selective. Non-selective third generation, that is cartiolol, carvedilol, bucindolol, labetalol, and beta 2 selective, that is betaxazolol, celiprolol, and nebivolol. Here the beta 2 word should be replaced with beta 1, and the advantage of third generation beta 1 blocker is that they have certain additional properties which we will be going to discuss little later. We first start with alpha adrenergic blocker drugs. Non-selective alpha blockers are phenoxybenzamine and phentolamine. They block both alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors because they are non-selective in nature. What happens when alpha 2 receptors are blocked? Alpha 2 blockage will increase the blood pressure by inhibiting the negative feedback mechanism which is there into the neurons. So ultimately they cause increase in the heart rate and force of contraction. If you remember from the synaptic transmission of the sympathetic neuron, on the presynaptic neuron there are two receptors, alpha 2 and beta 2. Alpha 2 receptor stimulation will cause inhibition of the sympathetic outflow, and beta 2 receptor stimulation will cause stimulation of the sympathetic outflow. So alpha 2 receptor blockage will cause inhibition of negative feedback mechanism, and there will be increase in the heart rate and force of contraction. That's why non-selective alpha blockers are not preferred in hypertension except if hypertension is because of pheochromocytoma, or if it is because of the cheese reaction, then non-selective alpha blockers have role. Otherwise, they do not have any role in management of hypertension. In management of hypertension, what we routinely use is alpha 1 selective blockers that include prazosin, terazosin, dexazosin, etc. So to remember from non-selective alpha blockers, they are useful only for the pheochromocytoma or cheese reaction because blockage of alpha 2 receptor itself will increase into the blood pressure. So whenever we say alpha 1 blockers into hypertension, we mean alpha 1 receptor blockers. They block alpha 1 receptor preferentially because of the high selectivity for alpha 1 receptor. That is why they are preferred in hypertension, because they are devoid of alpha 2 action, which is the major disadvantage of non-selective alpha blockers. Prototype of alpha blockers is prazosin. Now we see the mechanism of prazosin in hypertension. It is a prototype of alpha 1 blocker. Alpha 1 blockage will inhibit the alpha 1 mediated vasoconstriction. Alpha 1 receptor located into the blood vessel is responsible for vasoconstriction, and when we block this alpha 1 receptor, there will be inhibition of vasoconstriction, and the beta 2 receptor action remains unopposed. So ultimately there will be profound vasodilatation. It mainly affects arterioles and venular system, and ultimately both are dilated. So ultimately total peripheral resistance reduces and there is reduction of the mean blood pressure occurs. Arterial dilatation, which means reduction into the afterload, and they reduce the diastolic blood pressure. Venodilatation, which means reduction into the preload, fall into the cardiac output and fall into the blood pressure is seen. Advantage is that they produces less tachycardia because they block alpha 1 receptor on the heart also, so tachycardia is little less. Renal blood flow and glomerular filtration rate are maintained throughout the treatment. If we see the pharmacokinetic, when we take the drug orally, peak effect is seen into 4 to 5 hours and duration of action is up to 12 hours. So advantages of prazosin as antihypertensive are: it produces less tachycardia. It is suitable for diabetic patients because neuropathy accentuates the hypotension, which is reversed with the prazosin. They have favorable effect onto the lipid profile of the individual, which may be coexisting with the hypertension. It does not have effect on the heart or exercise capacity of the individual. It is useful into the hypertension which is coexisting with the benign prostatic hyperplasia or peripheral vascular diseases. As discussed into autonomic nervous system, drug of first choice for benign prostatic hyperplasia is also alpha blocker, and it is usually seen into elderly male who are more likely to develop hypertension. So when hypertension and benign prostatic hyperplasia is together, alpha blocker is drug of choice. Decrease in the preload and afterload, that is why they are helpful in congestive heart failure or left ventricular failure. Renal blood flow and glomerular filtration rate are maintained throughout. Now we see the adverse effect of prazosin. It produces postural hypotension, which is also called as first dose effect. Postural hypotension means when you take alpha blocker for the first time, or when patient takes the drug for the first time, because of the alpha 1 receptor blockage and beta 2 action remains unopposed, there is profound hypotension. Especially patient develops syncopal attack because of the vasodilatation of the leg blood vessels, which lead to decrease into the blood pressure. But the tolerance to this hypotensive action develops very fast. Patient has reflex tachycardia, postural hypotension and palpitations. Sometimes there is increase into the renin release which lead to water retention, headache, dizziness, dryness of mouth and blurring of vision. Ejaculation dysfunction is one of the common side effects of prazosin which may affect the quality of life. Dose of prazosin in hypertension is around tablets available as 2.5 and 5 mg, and dose is 2.5 to 5 mg. You can maximum increase up to 10 mg twice a day. Terazosin and doxazosin are longer acting, so they are given once a day. Doxazosin is given as 1 to 8 mg once a day. So what is the therapeutic uses and current status of prazosin in hypertension? They are seldomly used as monotherapy into the treatment of hypertension because we have better option available. If they are used alone, they cause fluid retention, tolerance develops, more effective when combined with diuretic or beta blocker because this side effect can be overcome. They are now considered as a second line drug for the treatment of hypertension. They are most suitable for patients having hypertension with diabetes, peripheral vascular disease, benign prostatic hyperplasia, abnormal lipid profile, congestive heart failure and left ventricular failure. Now we come to the role of beta adrenergic blocker drugs into the hypertension. They include propranolol, atenolol, metoprolol, nadolol, etc. Cardioselective beta blockers are used in hypertension. What are the advantages of cardioselective beta blocker? They include no other systemic side effects like bronchoconstriction, hyperglycemia, alteration of the lipid profile. It is not seen with the cardioselective beta blockers. They have very high efficacy because of the targeted action on the heart and JG cells of kidney only, because beta 1 receptors are located at two places, heart and JG cells of kidney, and both have important role into the maintenance of blood pressure. So these drugs are having high efficacy and they are well tolerated by most of the patients. What is the mechanism or rationale for use of beta blockers in hypertension? First is, if we discuss or if we have to summarize the pathophysiology of hypertension in one line, it is sympathetic overactivity, and beta blocker will act by reducing this sympathetic overactivity. Second is, they decrease the renin release from the kidney by blocking beta 1 receptor located on the JG cells of the kidney. Cardiac action of the beta blockers are, they block the beta 1 receptors on the heart, which would lead to decrease in the heart rate, decrease in the force of contraction, decrease in the cardiac output, and ultimately blood pressure reduces. Chronic reduction of the cardiac output reduces the total peripheral resistance and reduces the resistance to blood flow, so ultimately decrease into the blood pressure is seen. It also causes reduction of the neuronal noradrenaline release by beta blockage into the presynaptic neurons. It is also having central action on the vasomotor nucleus and cause reduction into the sympathetic outflow. There are other mechanisms are also seen with the third generation beta blockers, which include production of the nitrous oxide, activation of beta 2 receptor, simultaneous blockage of alpha 1 receptor, blockage of calcium entry, opening of potassium channel, antioxidant property, and all these mechanisms which are happening at the local level but ultimately lead to vasodilatation, leads to fall into the blood pressure. So there are certain facts about beta blockers which needs to be remembered for hypertension, that all the cardioselective beta blockers have same efficacy for the management of hypertension. They do not cause fall into the blood pressure into normotensive patients, which means they reduce the blood pressure to the normal level, but further than or hypertension is not produced with beta blocker. Effect develops after 1 to 3 weeks of therapy. Drugs with intrinsic sympathomimetic activity has less effect on the heart rate, cardiac output and GFR. They decrease the TPR by beta 2 agonism. There is no hypotension, no sodium and water retention occurs, and less side effect as compared to other drugs. They also has some cardioprotective effect. Most importantly, they are very cheap drug, can be afforded by most of the patient if the therapy has to be taken lifelong. Once or twice daily dosing is sufficient for most of the patient, which is convenient for most of the patient. It is well tolerated because of the cost and less side effect and convenient dosage. It can be used in combination with diuretic, ACE inhibitors, vasodilators, and other groups of antihypertensive drugs. Only problem is abrupt discontinuation of the beta blocker may cause tachycardia, rebound hypertension, and angina, because beta blockers are the drugs which will be constantly suppressing the beta receptors. When you immediately remove that suppression, there is receptor hyperactivity, and small amount of adrenaline released inside the body may produce exaggerated response leading to tachycardia and rebound hypertension and angina. So once started, beta blocker should never be discontinued abruptly. If you want to discontinue the drug, it should be gradual withdrawal. Adverse effect and contraindication of beta blocker includes bradycardia or heart rate less than 60 beats per minute. In such condition, beta blockers are contraindicated into the patients of AV block and sick sinus syndrome, where suppression of heart is not afforded by the patient. Variant angina or Prinzmetal angina, which can be precipitated by the use of beta blockers. Decompensated heart failure can be worsened with the use of beta blockers, so they are contraindicated in them. In diabetic patient, beta blockers should not be given because they may produce hypoglycemic unawareness. What is hypoglycemic unawareness? Usually whenever blood glucose level goes down, it is called as hypoglycemia. And symptoms of hypoglycemia include perspiration, tremors, anxiety, tachycardia, palpitation, and ultimately fainting attack. All these symptoms of hypoglycemia like tremors, perspiration, tachycardia, feeling of anxiety, uneasiness, they all are mediated through sympathetic system. And when you block the beta receptor, these symptoms of hypoglycemia will not be there. So if the diabetic patient takes beta blocker and if they go into hypoglycemia, their blood sugar level goes down, but they will not have any symptoms because you have blocked beta receptors. That phenomena is called as hypoglycemic unawareness because patients goes into hypoglycemia but they do not have any symptoms, so they are not aware that they are going into hypoglycemia, which is quite dangerous, may lead to hypoglycemic coma also and death. That is why beta blockers are contraindicated into patients of diabetes. They are also contraindicated into patients of bronchial asthma and COPD because of the risk of bronchospasm. They are also contraindicated into the peripheral vascular disease patient because of the excessive vasoconstriction. Non-selective beta blocker has unfavorable lipid profile, which is not a problem with cardioselective beta blockers. They reduces the work capacity, they produces fatigue, loss of libido, forgetfulness, nightmares and depression into the individual. That is why it should be used very cautiously into such individuals. Rebound hypertension or abrupt withdrawal may occur, which should always be kept in mind. So what is the therapeutic status? Till now they were first line agent into the management of hypertension, but as per the recent guideline of JNC, now they are not the first line agent into the management of hypertension. First choice of drugs for hypertension, they are recommended into patients prone to psychological stress like hypertension with anxiety, palpitation, tachycardia, ischemic heart disease like angina and MI. ACE inhibitors and beta blockers are most effective in preventing post-MI deaths. That is why they should be used whenever simultaneous hypertension with MI. They are safe in pregnancy, especially beta 1 agents, blockers, and ISA agents. So, here I would like to focus that till previous year beta blockers were first line therapy for the management of hypertension, but according to the recent JNC guidelines, beta blocker are now second line therapy for the hypertension. They should be used as a first choice only if hypertension is with anxiety, with palpitation, tachycardia, angina, MI or pregnancy. Otherwise, they should be used as a second line drug. Some commonly used beta blocker are shown here. Cardioselective are ataxolol, atenolol, betoxolol, bisoprolol, metoprolol, and non-selective are nadolol and propranolol. Doses and frequencies are shown here, usually given as once or twice a daily administration. Next category of drug is mixed alpha and beta blockers, that is labetalol. They reduces the blood pressure due to decreased systemic vascular resistance without significant alteration in the heart rate or cardiac output. They are useful in treating the hypertension of pheochromocytoma, hypertensive emergencies, and rebound hypertension due to clonidine withdrawal. Side effects are postural hypotension and hepatotoxicity. Oral doses 200 to 2400 mg per day can be given. For hypertensive emergencies, labetalol is usually given as IV bolus injection into the dose of 20 to 80 mg. Next is carvedilol, which is also combined alpha and beta blocker. Additionally, it causes free radical inhibition and prevention of smooth muscle mitogenesis of the blood vessels. They reduced morbidity and mortality into the hypertension, which is associated with heart failure also. Dose is 6.25 mg twice daily. Next drug class of sympatholytic is central sympatholytics that include clonidine and alpha methyl dopa. They act mainly through the CNS. As the name suggests, they are centrally acting drugs. They reduces the central sympathetic outflow. They are considered having moderate efficacy, and current therapeutic statuses, they are not preferred into the management of hypertension. They are third line therapy. Because they affect the CNS, there is a huge list of adverse drug reaction associated with it. So we choose the drug which are safe and more efficacious. So currently central sympatholytic drugs are third line therapy, not routinely preferred into the hypertension. Let's discuss clonidine. It is the alpha 2 agonist and imidazoline compound. Alpha 2 receptors are located presynaptically, which inhibit the central sympathetic outflow by negative feedback mechanism. So, what is the mechanism of clonidine in hypertension? It is an alpha 2 agonist. So, it stimulates the postsynaptic alpha 2 receptor at vasomotor center, which would lead to decreased sympathetic outflow, which would lead to reduced cardiac output and peripheral resistance, which leads to decreased blood pressure and decreased heart rate. It is also act on imidazoline receptor, which mediate the modulation of central alpha 2 receptors. It is also acting on presynaptic alpha 2 receptors of sympathetic postganglionic neurons. It also causes reduction into the renin release. So, reduced cardiac output contributes more to the fall in the blood pressure rather than the presynaptic alpha 2 action. Cardiovascular reflexes are little affected. There is no effect on the plasma lipid level. Overdose stimulate the peripheral postsynaptic alpha 1 adrenoceptors, which cause hypertension by vasoconstriction. Abrupt withdrawal causes rebound hypertension. Peak effect is seen in 2 to 4 hours and duration is 6 to 24 hours. 50 to 65% of clonidine is excreted unchanged into the urine. It is available as 100 to 150 milligram tablet. Dose is 100 microgram once or twice daily, and available as transdermal patches also. Adverse effects are very frequent, very disturbing, which is the main limiting factor for use of this drug. Because it acts on the CNS, it produces sedation, mental depression, and disturbed sleep, dryness of mouth, nose, and eyes, dryness of GIT secretion leading to constipation, retention of sodium and water. That is why it can be combined with the diuretic also. It produces bradycardia and postural hypotension. It produces impotence as a side effect, nightmare, restlessness, depression, nausea, dizziness, constipation, parotid pain. Abrupt withdrawal due to release of stored catecholamine would produce rebound hypertension with palpitation, restlessness, anxiety, nausea, and vomiting. And for the treatment of clonidine withdrawal, we should give combined alpha and beta blocker or vasodilator or clonidine itself. That is why clonidine should always be withdrawn gradually. Otherwise, if you stop it abruptly, there is a huge release of catecholamine into the neuron, and they will be the alpha 2 agonist is removed now. So, inhibition is removed, and all the catecholamine will be released simultaneously, which produced profound hypertension with palpitation, anxiety, and other symptoms. Treatment is give clonidine, because if it is because of the withdrawal, you can give the drug. You can give vasodilator or you can give combined alpha and beta blocker. It has many drug interaction. Clonidine effect is decreased with the tricyclic antidepressant chlorpromazine and central alpha blockage. Newer imidazoline compound are moxonidine and rilmenidine. So, what is the therapeutic use of clonidine? It is used for the treatment of moderate hypertension. It is effective and cheap, but adverse effect of which usually impairs the quality of life. It is always used in combination with diuretic, only used as third line therapy when all other drugs fail in controlling the blood pressure. But clonidine has many other uses where it is first line. So it can be useful for treatment of opioid withdrawal, alcohol withdrawal and tobacco withdrawal. It can be useful for treatment of operative pain as a substitute of morphine for intratracheal and epidural analgesia. For post-operative maintenance of cardiovascular stability and reduction into the anesthetic dosage, clonidine can be used as a adjuvant medicine into the anesthesia. It can be useful for treatment of menopausal symptoms. It can be one of the drug which can be used for diagnosis of pheochromocytoma. Management of diarrhea into the diabetic patient is usually done with clonidine, and in all this condition it is drug of first choice. Except hypertension, everywhere where clonidine is used it is drug of first choice. Next drug is alpha methyl dopa. Its mechanism of action in hypertension is it is also centrally acting alpha 2 agonist agent. Alpha methyl dopa is converted into alpha methyl dopamine. This alpha methyl dopamine is converted into alpha methyl norepinephrine, which will stimulate the central alpha 2 receptor, which is similar to clonidine. Alpha methyl norepinephrine, which all act as a false neurotransmitter and cannot act on postsynaptic alpha and beta receptor. So, alpha methyl norepinephrine inhibit the dopa decarboxylase and inhibit the norepinephrine synthesis also. That is why it is one of the very important drug for the treatment of hypertension. It reduces the TPR more than the cardiac output and heart rate. Fall into the noradrenaline and renin level is seen. Postural reflexes are not affected much. Adverse effect of alpha methyl dopa, it produces sedation, lethargy and reduced mental activity. That is why it is given at the bedtime. It produces headache, dryness of mouth, nasal stuffiness, fluid retention and impotence. Mild postural hypotension is seen into elderly individuals. It produces extrapyramidal side effects and galactorrhea, hypersensitivity reaction, fever, rash, hepatitis, hemolytic anemia and lupus-like reaction is also seen with alpha methyl dopa. It produces rebound hypertension, but it is less common than clonidine. So therapeutic uses of alpha methyl dopa, it is used for mild to moderate hypertension but always in combination with diuretics. It is used as third line drug for hypertension, which is similar to clonidine and use is declining nowadays. Only advantage of alpha methyl dopa is it is the safest drug during pregnancy, does not have any teratogenic effect and it is even today drug of first choice for pregnancy induced hypertension. It lowers the blood pressure without compromising renal blood flow and GFR, so it can be useful for hypertension with renal insufficiency also, but it is rarely used. Dose is 250 to 500 milligram twice a day to 4 times a day. Next drug is group is ganglionic blockers. Trimethophan. It blocks both sympathetic and parasympathetic ganglia. So effect on various organ is different depending on its baseline sympathetic or parasympathetic predominance. But complication of ganglionic blockers include they produces tachycardia, postural hypotension, dryness of mouth, mydriasis and blurring of vision, urinary retention and erectile dysfunction. That is why they are rarely used now. Even you can forget that this drug is not used as antihypertensive. It is sometimes rarely used during short surgery to produce controlled hypertension in dissecting aortic aneurysm, hypertensive emergencies or acute pulmonary edema where it is to be controlled by cardiologist in a very precise manner, but otherwise not routinely used as antihypertensive. Next drug is adrenergic neuron blocker. It includes reserpine, guanethidine and guanidrel. Reserpine's mechanism of action in hypertension is described here. Reserpine is taken up by the nerve terminal. It binds irreversibly to the storage vesicles of the presynaptic neuron and inhibit the vesicular uptake or uptake 3 of the norepinephrine. If you remember the synthesis, storage and release of norepinephrine from the autonomic nervous system, once the norepinephrine is synthesized, it is stored into the synaptic neurons or vesicles, and from the vesicles it is released into the synaptic cleft by the process of docking. And when the action is of the norepinephrine is terminated, it is reuptake back into the synaptic neuron, that is uptake 1. It is diffused into the peripheral tissue, that is uptake 2. And after entering into the neuron, it is again stored back into the vesicles, that is called as uptake 3. And that uptake 3 is inhibited by reserpine. So inhibition of storage vesicles, which would lead to slow release of neurotransmitter, which can be destroyed by MAO enzyme, monoamine oxidase, decreased capacity of vesicles to store norepinephrine, dopamine and 5-HT, which also reduces the sympathetic activity overall. Onset of action is slow and recovery is very slow. It requires new synthesis of the storage vesicles, maybe days or week would be there to reverse the action. Both central and peripheral action is seen with reserpine. So fall in BP is due to decrease in heart rate, cardiac output and peripheral resistance, and also decrease into the renin release is seen. Dose of reserpine is 0.25 mg orally once a day. It is also having adverse drug reactions like sedation, depression, suicidal tendency, loss of concentration, postural hypotension, water retention, peptic ulcer, extrapyramidal reaction, increased prolactin secretion leading to gynecomastia and galactorrhea. That is why it is contraindicated into pregnancy patient, depression patient, epilepsy and peptic ulcer. And the therapeutic status is same like all other centrally acting drugs. It is a third line drug in hypertension which is rarely used nowadays. Other is guanethidine, which is its mechanism of action in hypertension is it enters the neuron, block the release of norepinephrine in response to nerve stimulation. That is why it is having quick onset of action. It enters the vesicles and displays the neurotransmitters, which would lead to gradual depletion into the stored neurotransmitter. It is also acting as false neurotransmitter also. When given IV, rapid displacement of the neurotransmitter from the vesicles is there, which lead to transient sympathomimetic action which requires monitoring. So there is transient rise in blood pressure followed by sustained fall. Dose is 25 to 50 mg once a day. It is having adverse drug reactions like postural hypotension, weakness, diarrhea, retention of sodium and water, impotence, ejaculatory defects, supersensitization of the receptor. That is why it is not used as monotherapy, even third or fourth line of therapy. Not used currently. So to summarize, in management of hypertension, centrally acting drugs are third line of therapy. They are not routinely preferred. Alpha methyl dopa is drug of choice for pregnancy induced hypertension because it is not teratogenic, can be given safely to the pregnant mother. If we have to see alpha and alpha blockers are second line of therapy. They are useful for the management of hypertension with BPH or peripheral vascular disease or other comorbidities. Beta blockers were previously drug of first choice, but nowadays their use is limited to the hypertension with IHD, hypertension with MI, hypertension with compensated heart failure and other conditions or other compelling indication exist. So we should be very cautious while prescribing or using sympatholytic drugs into the management of hypertension. So if you have any questions regarding this, you can ask here. Thank you.